So my last video was 8 months ago, and that was a recap of me learning that my initial investigation against me was using this NHI technology that they're using for the targeting program. They're using it for surveillance for criminal investigations, with the CIA being in lead, and fusion centers working with the CIA are using this NHI surveillance technology for joint investigations of criminal investigations, and it's so widespread that I was an unvetted target for one of these investigations. So if I, being a nobody, was targeted for an investigation in 2020, that means any target of interest by the CIA is already compromised. For 2 years, my mind was covertly compromised with this technology, and the only thing that someone covertly being the target or subject of having their mind compromised was I had the freak occurrence of an out-of-the-body experience when the technology compromised my mind. I had the one and only out-of-body experience that I've ever had, which was me laying down for a nap, and my vision transferred first person to something that was about waist level, coming down the shop and into the office where I was laying down on a cot to take a nap, and jumped into me. And it wasn't a threatening experience. I didn't take it as a parasitic event. I'm a very regular, rational person who thinks it's a just world, and never. I thought I took this experience. I thought I somehow had been transcendental meditating and astro projecting out of nowhere without trying, and I caught myself on the return trip into my body. But in May 2022, my targeting began, and it was exposed to me that the communication I'm hearing is inside my head. And that brought up immediately that experience, that out-of-body experience that I never, ever would have ever thought of ever again. I just thought it was a weird, rare occurrence. It was the only out-of-body experience I've ever had. But I never would have thought about it again. And because I was laying down to take a nap, it's evident that they were waiting for me to fall asleep so I would skip this experience. So their fuck up is the only reason why I had that out-of-body experience. Covert targets who are having their mind compromised will never know about it unless they're told. So it's been 8 months of me finding out. I've been saying national resources and my local DA's office is behind my targeting from the beginning. I was saying national resources from the beginning because of a insider whistleblower phone call that my father was witness to of a female operator from my PSYOP telling me it's the DA's office and national resources behind my targeting. So the last video I learned that national resources is the domestic division of the CIA, and nobody has ever heard of them. Good or bad, nothing. No one talks about national resources. For 23 months, I would research, here and there on who they were. but I never thought it was the CIA because I trust in the institutions that govern us, and I believe in these institutions. And the CIA is a foreign intelligence collection agency that isn't supposed to operate domestically. They got in trouble for it with the MK Ultra stuff, and they were banned from domestic operations. So I thought never would they be. I never put any thought into who would be behind it, because there is no reason anyone should ever torture me psychologically or any type of harm to me. So finding out it's the CIA left me completely and utterly stonewalled by all local, state, and federal authorities. For 8 months, I've spent a lot of effort with the attitude of not taking no for an answer. And I couldn't even get face-to-face interactions with any authority. The only authority that hasn't been able to dismiss or stonewall or completely avoid me from the beginning has been the Pennsylvania State Police. Finding out it's the CIA, they wouldn't allow me to contact the trooper that I have given my written account to, Trooper Corporal Brislin of Dunmore. I would make calls to them and they would disconnect instead of putting me through. So I went in person, and they wouldn't let me see a trooper in person or let me leave my written account updating them that what I've been saying, National Resources is behind my targeting. They wouldn't let me leave information of it. I went to Harrisburg in person to the Pennsylvania Attorney General's office because I've been reporting them online with their online report forms since the beginning. That is the DA's office and National Resources. So I go in person knowing it's the CIA now, and they're a lot like the state trooper barracks where you do not get to see anybody face to face. They have a guard at the front gate of their, I think it's the main Attorney General's office in Harrisburg. I want to say Strawberry Court. It's like some kind of fruit court, where I got to speak with a guard at the front gate, at the front door, and he gave me a phone number to call to get an appointment. The only way to get to see anyone face to face is with an appointment. And calling that number, it rang half a ring, and the guy immediately picked up and said that they have no jurisdiction over Pennsylvania's district attorneys, that no one does. And when I mentioned the CIA's involvement, they hung up on me. A big thing of why I should never been targeted and had directed energy weapons used against me is I am an ex-federal employee. I have Havana Act rights, and no one will talk to me about that. I have been saying National Resources is behind directed energy weapon attacks against me that have hospitalized me. And no one will talk to me about it. So being stonewalled by all authorities has left the complicity of the nation involved in these targeting programs. It is the law enforcement apparatus itself that is committing these atrocities against, most people who call themselves targeted individuals are clearly they have pre-existing mental health issues. Uh, they are saying the same things I say, and these claims that we share are much more in line with the tactics intelligence agencies use, documented tactics to break their targets. Uh, you know, they gaslight, they discredit, misdirect, guilt manipulation. You know, you can go look up a list of tactics that intelligence agencies use, and that is basically what targeted individuals are claiming, and not at all like the generalized torment of natural psychosis. And schizophrenia is very rare altogether. It's like 0.3 to 0.1% of the population gets it, and in most targeted individuals are 35 to 45, and late onset schizophrenia, you'll show subtle signs your whole life that something is a bit off. It's not shocking to people who actually have late onset schizophrenia. The claims of targeted individuals are they have situational awareness. They respond in real time. When schizophrenia doesn't convince you that you're under surveillance. Schizophrenia doesn't threaten your sister by name. It doesn't, the claims of what targeted individuals have, they recognize hierarchy, they've recognized standard operators and bosses, and they see shift patterns in abuse, with day shift being harder to deal with, more abuse. They recognize their operators, familiarity with them. They notice shift changes, like rotation of shift, and they recognize the local dialects and speech patterns of, local people. They recognize their neighbors are the ones doing this, and they sound like police. They talk like police. My operators call me Roberts by my last name, just like cops do. I've been saying through human error, the first month I was able to ascertain 6 of their names from them vying to get the attention of one another. And I learned that Mark and Chris from the DA's office are the leads. Mark Powell and lead detective Chris Colcherno. Mark is now a judge, but he started out as the district attorney in charge of my targeting psyop. Jason, Brian, and Jeff are cops and detectives associated with the Lackawanna County Drug Task Force, the people I've been claiming who are behind my targeting. And I recognize my old neighbor, childhood friend of mine's father, Joseph Jordan, Detective Joseph Jordan. He's retired, and I was wondering, because I knew he was with the task force, I was wondering why I didn't hear him. I thought maybe because I have a relationship that I know him, but he had actually retired, and that's why I didn't hear him. I heard him 3 different times, and I recognized his voice, and I talked to him like I knew him, and he talked to me like he knew me. And I told him of their tactics. They're threatening to kill my mother on repeat. if I don't go to rehab. The initial goals of my PSYOP were for me to go to rehab where the extraction procedure for this technology takes place. So, no one would I know. I never thought I would ever have to do anything to stop this. I thought my targeting would end on its own. And I jumped through all the non-existent hoops I could. I thought I did everything right. And my targeting still hasn't ended. And it was 2 years before I felt like I have to do anything. My first YouTube video was a year into my targeting when I had to, put a little effort into thinking, how do I prove I'm not crazy? And the first thing that comes up is like, find other victims. And I was shocked and mortified that I could find so many victims that they have their own community, targeted individuals, they call themselves. And, and I looked and I found all of the targeted individuals I was able to find clearly are delusional on top of being targeted. They've been specifically chosen because of their pre-existing mental health conditions, making all of their claims immediately dismissed with no one looking any further into it. This is by design, and there are so many of these victims that the CIA themselves are the architect of the targeted individual community. At first glimpse, the rational mind of the regular public, anybody who looks into the targeted individual claims or the community, will immediately only find infiltrated plants from the CIA making nonsensical, fabricated claims of their targeting and stuff no one could ever believe. And they spend a lot of time and money trying to convince these victims of nonsensical claims. What I'm going to share here is completely scary information. Me saying that the targeted individual community is manufactured as a way for the CIA to keep control of their victims' narrative. Me just saying that sounds likely, but there's blatant proof of it. The only source of advocacy for targeted individuals is the nonprofit Targeted Justice. And if you look at Targeted Justice, which is supposed to be a nonprofit fighting for the rights of targeted individuals, but if you look, it is a clear CIA misdirection PSYOP that is trying to convince actual victims to blame the FBI for a nonsensical reason of them being on a FBI terrorist watch list. And that's the reason why they're being targeted. No one in their rational mind could ever believe that. These victims should not believe that. No one is confusing you for a terrorist. You weren't accidentally put on a terrorist watch list. And then they're making frivolous lawsuits. And frivolous means bullshit. Frivolous lawsuits do not make it past the first page. No one, you get thrown out of court like you're a joke immediately. And lawyers do not make frivolous lawsuits that further discredit their clients unless it is on purpose. They're not even mentioning the CIA. That's how blatant this psyop is. It is the CIA in control of their victim's narrative. If you take a little deeper dive into the targeted individual community, if you look at Facebook support groups, Twitter and Quora, you'll find targeted individuals connecting with other targeted individuals because they are the only people who will believe or understand, are able to believe them. There's the only people in the world that can believe them. And if you look, there is a lot of misdirection in these communities of CIA infiltrated plants trying to convince them of nonsensical claims, delusional sounding claims for them to repeat. On Quora, there is a mass campaign of trying to convince targeted individuals to make reports to the DOJ for an BCI implant in their eye. None of these victims are claiming NHI technology. The only technology that could possibly ever be psychotronic without a direct implant in the brain. Humans are not capable of making technology like this. From my direct exposure and a little bit of insider knowledge, I've been able to ascertain that the technology being used for the targeting program is abuse of technology already being used for surveillance. It is a NHI non-invasive B2B CI brain-to-brain computer interface, RNM, remote neural monitoring, neural interface technology that is being used. It has two-way communication ability and nervous system manipulation abilities. It is operating in another dimension. It is autonomous or controlled remotely. The technology itself that I have the out-of-body experience in either acts autonomously or is controlled and pilots itself to you. It is not implanted. There is nobody implanting chips. It is impossible technology being used, which the rational mind cannot, cannot admit the reality of it. November 13th, 2024's congressional hearing exposing the truth on UAPs has three different credible sources putting testimony on the congressional record of the existence of NHIs and NHI technology and extra-dimensional technology. This was a big thing to be put on record in Congress that was downplayed. It should have been, world news that people are claiming aliens exist. The media browsed right over it. No one took notice. Me saying national resources for 2 years and my claims of it being NHI technology exposes CIA collusion with NHI. Finding out from being stonewalled so bad by all authorities since I found out it's the CIA, puts the complicity of the nation in these targeting programs as a reality. There is a giant rabbit hole that I don't want to know anything about. The only thing I care about is stopping the genocidal targeting programs. I do not care about the NHI influence or, the technology that is being used by the powers that are to commit genocide on the nation's most vulnerable people. People with mental health issues are vulnerable people. And the law enforcement apparatus is behind their targeting. They are psychologically executing. That was the word it was told to me as. I was told psychological execution. That is what is happening to these people. The ones that call themselves targeted individuals are merely the ones who have survived long enough to understand that something like this is happening to them. I couldn't tell you the percentage of people who are psychologically executed who commit suicide without ever understanding the situation they are actually in. So this is difficult for me to believe because I still believe in these institutions. I still go to the state police for help, and I try and get them to help me with this. I believe these people are good people. They didn't become cops and law enforcement and troopers to do this. They are not people that are trying to commit genocide on American citizens. So there has to be a division of law enforcement now. These people are sitting on their hands. These are good cops. These are good troopers. These are good sheriffs. These are good men letting their friends commit atrocities, literal genocide against the mentally ill. And I have proof of this. Over the last 8 months, I have spent that time doing Freedom of Information Act requests and right to know law requests. The CIA's Privacy Act response to me was that it was a Glomar response, that they cannot confirm nor deny classified involvement with me, which is weird because anyone and everyone should be able to confirm no classified involvement with me. I am a nobody. My name is Matthew Roberts, and I am nobody. I have no criminal history. I keep to myself, and I bother nobody. So if you did a Privacy Act request with the CIA, it would confirm no classified involvement. My right to know law requests from the state police, I wanted the details of the 5 incidents where they were at my house, at my residence, where I tried to report the Lackawanna County I tried to report harassment, in-person harassment, stalking, intimidation of them, the Lackawanna County Drug Task Force, harassing me in person and they would not let me. But I am on record for 5 cases, and I have the record numbers. I'll put them in the description of me trying to report intimidation and stalking and harassment that was done in person the first month. The right to know law request response from the state police also included a Glomar that can neither confirm nor deny any classified involvement with me or with them with other agencies. Over the last 8 months, I have tried to take no for an answer with trying to get any authority to talk to me about this. And I have gone so far as to call in a fertilizer bomb threat to the FBI national tip line, along with reporting the named cops and detectives involved in my targeting. I called in a fertilizer bomb threat, guaranteeing me a face-to-face discussion, them vetting me as a terrorist, guaranteeing me face-to-face interaction with the FBI. And all I got was a 2-sentence response over the phone. I got a phone call. This is the FBI. Is this Matthew Roberts? And my first words out of my mouth were, "You need to speak to me in person." And their response was, "Where are you right now?" And, I always tell the truth. I am honest to a fault. So I immediately didn't think anything suspicious, and I told them I'm at work right now. And they said, they hung up. And I thought that was weird, and 10 minutes later, the local police showed up and 302'd me. And that would be the 5th 302. A 302 is an involuntary committal for psych. That is what you do that's what happens if you're a danger to yourself or others. So the FBI 302'd me without discussion. They did not vet if I was, capable or doing what I said, buying ammonium nitrate fertilizer in bulk. They did not check on that. They just 302'd me. The involuntary committal. And I was out in 2 weeks. I was held for 2 weeks because I had drugs in my system. So I have sent them dozens of faxes. I've sent everyone, the state police, the Pennsylvania Attorney General, and the FBI, hundreds of faxes reporting by name who is behind these targeting programs, and that it is the CIA National Resources Domestic Division behind it all. And I have filled out their online report form on the FBI website dozens of times. And my Freedom of Information Act request from the FBI, my Privacy Act request, which is what you do when you want your files that the FBI have on you. Any information the FBI has on you, if you do this request, a Privacy Act, Freedom of Information Act request, the FBI sends you the files they have on you if they can. And the FBI's response was even more suspect than the Glomar responses of the state police and the CIA. They claim they have no files on me, and they have an official response to a fertilizer bomb threat, but they have no record of it. So if the law enforcement apparatus is the perpetrators of the targeted programs, the targeting programs, they're never going to investigate themselves. With the immutable skepticism of the rational mind, we've been conditioned and programmed to believe in the systems that govern us. We believe in the institutions of education, the government, and law enforcement, and we've been conditioned and programmed to not believe in aliens or alien technology. And even though now I know a lot better, and I still think other people are aligned morally just the same as me, and you do it too. We all think that our neighbors and other people we meet are good-natured people just like ourselves. When history shows us again and again, our own lives show us that people are not the same as you. But our default is to assume everyone else is as good-natured as we are inherently, and that we've been conditioned that the government and those in power are even more moral and competent than ourselves, and we trust these people. And history has a way of showing us, anytime you look, that the people in power are not the good people. Positions of power and authority attract the bad qualities of people, bad qualities of man, the bad qualities of humanity. They attract the narcissistic, insecure, hateful people in positions of power. The qualities that crave power are not the good qualities. Goodness, kindness, compassion, humility, empathy, love, these qualities do not crave authority. They do not need power. Good, true leaders are forced into these positions, and they are quickly dismissed, discredited, or executed. Good leaders like Martin Luther King, MLK, and even Kennedy. These are good people who were executed because they were good people. They were a threat to the powers that be. But we've been programmed into believing in these institutions, believing in politicians, trusting in law enforcement, protect and serve. And I've always thought and believed, I've always had a healthy attitude towards law enforcement. I thought they were underpaid people doing a hard job that no one else really wants to do. There's no one to replace them. And I thought they were doing these jobs at a poor rate because they loved it, because they loved helping people. Yeah, sure, kicking ass and taking names is a fun thing, but helping people is what their goal is, and that's what I believed. But my interactions, especially since learning, I've been saying the domestic division by name is behind my targeting. Finding out it is the CIA. My interactions with the police and state troopers, they are not what they should be as me being a victim. It is them attacking me. Not all cops are in on this, and in the beginning of my targeting, they sprung these overt goals of suicide on these operators. I heard one guy walk away from his position as an operator in this psyop against me. He realized what was going on, and he got up disgusted and verbally out loud said, I am not going to be a part of this kid committed suicide. And I never heard that voice again. He got up and walked away. The initial goals, the CIA tricked the police into, the psyop against me. The initial goal was to get me into a drug and alcohol rehab to go and get this technology, the extraction procedure done. The people in rehab are kind-hearted medical health professionals who are in the dark here. They would never be a part of torture and the technology in place to do it. So the extraction procedure happening at rehab is either bullshit or they just don't know it's happening. The initial goal was to abuse me into rehab, and it involved in-person stalking, intimidation, and harassment. At one point, they were to torment me. They were tormenting my dogs when I wasn't home, and they fired a gun off outside my residence to torment my dogs. And through this technology, I heard the gunshot, and I heard my dogs barking, and they were doing that to torment me. And it was late enough at night that the state troopers were called by my neighbor, and the state troopers were not directly involved then, and they told me about this occurrence and that they responded, and I wasn't home. And my right to know law request was to get these troopers' names, to talk to them, because I had quality, positive interactions with these troopers at first. A lot of targeted individuals claim of directed energy weapons being used against them, and I am one of those victims who have had this done to me on half a dozen occasions, and they are the most terrifying experiences I've ever been a part of, ever had done to me. I didn't know what else to do. I got paralysis and did not move, and thinking that this radiation I felt climb up my arm from a source that felt like it was in the room. It was not a line of sight like a gun, like a regular, what you would think of a directed energy weapon. It was not that. It was a source of radiation crawling up my arm and targeting the base of my brain on the left side. And my instinct was to not move, because I thought maybe, it singled in on this spot, and I thought maybe moving would damage other parts of my brain that shouldn't be damaged, like collateral damage. So I froze every time it happened. Christmas 2023, I find my roommate dead, which I immediately called in as a fentanyl overdose. My friend was not an addict, but he did use occasionally. And the scene where I found his corpse, there was no evidence of drug use. But I called it in anyways as a fentanyl overdose. I couldn't think of anything else what it could have been. He's laid over, doubled, and his corpse is there. Fell out of his chair. So I called it in, and EMT showed up first, and they were great, and I had a positive experience with them. They did their jobs correctly. And then the state troopers showed up from the Dunmore barracks, and that's when things got a little strange. Uh, During the entire time they were there, with my interactions with them, one of the nervous system attacks that I am on record for saying a nervous system attack, and I am on YouTube experiencing it, is tetanus-like symptoms with the mild symptoms of getting lockjaw and a little stiff muscles and a harder ability to talk and communicate, with the extreme symptoms being what is on YouTube already of my extreme tetanus-like symptoms of my body contorting and locking in extreme positions, impossible positions, and lockjaw and paralysis of my face. And I am on YouTube experiencing that. When I had to interact with these troopers, I was getting nervous system attacked with mild symptoms of lockjaw and stiff muscle. And my interactions with the state troopers, they were there for 2 hours. All they did was ask me his name and had no other interactions with me and my father. Me and my father were the only ones there, and they were there for 2 hours. The coroner came, and he had no questions or statements to make to me or my father, did not speak to us at all, and they got the body out and left. And when I went and looked where his corpse was, I found undisturbed vomit he had thrown up, and it was Cinnamon Toast Crunch cereal with fresh blood pooled on the top as like a part of the same vomit action, the same singular vomit, but at the end and on top of his cereal. And this was fresh red blood. If he had stomach ulcers or any kind of normal intestinal issues at the same time as his fentanyl overdose, it would have been black blood. It would have been darker. It would have been older looking. This was fresh damage to his internals exposed on his vomit. And I did not notice it right away, but the next day, my friend came to go through his stuff. My roommate's name was Alex Sharp, and I found, my friend Joe found, he's like, "What is this?" And I look, and it is 2 grams about of fentanyl where his corpse was, which was overtly planted by the state troopers. It couldn't have been overlooked. This was directly on the floor where his corpse was, and it was not there when I surveyed the scene initially. I looked. I would have gave the troopers the drugs myself, and the standard operating procedure with an overdose is you question and talk to witnesses, friends, family about their substance abuse history, where they got the drugs, who their friends are. The cops try and find out who the dealer is, of who's the supplier of the death fentanyl, of how your friend died. That is standard procedure. None of that happened. To overtly plant the drugs is a direct cover-up of a directed energy Havana syndrome weapon attack. He was murdered, and I was complicit in the cover-up. I am no longer able to be complicit in that. When I came to the conclusion of this situation being what it actually is, I still kept my mouth shut. I immediately told my friends and family about the overt planning of the fentanyl, but I did not call the cops on the cops, because calling the police on the police for my targeting has got me no place where I want to be. So I did not call the police on the police. But I did have a later interaction with state troopers over a welfare check from one of the many mass faxes I've sent disclosing the perpetrators of the targeting program. They did a welfare check on me, hoping that I was manic, and I was able to be committed for it. But I was not manic, and I called these troopers out for planning this fentanyl, and the one trooper admitted, he said that those troopers overtly left the fentanyl that I found because of their risk of exposure themselves to overdose. They left the drugs there so that they did not risk overdosing themselves. This is not how troopers operate. You are not allowed to do that. Him trying to cover for his brothers in, law enforcement was a bad choice. I have found so many bad choices and mistakes that law enforcement have made to expose themselves in this conspiracy. The female insider who called me is the only female from my PSYOP. She is directly involved part of the Lackawanna County Drug Task Force. And she called me when I was tortured out of rehab initially the first month. Their overt goals was to get me into rehab for the extraction procedure. And they sprung it on these police operators running the PSYOP against me. They sprung the actual intent of psychologically executing me to psychologically drive me to commit suicide. That was always the intended goal. And they surprised these operators with it. And she called me on my ride home when I left detox from rehab. When it became clear, when they tortured me out of rehab to start the overt goal of driving me to commit suicide, she called me on my ride home and told me it was the Lackawanna County District Attorney's Office and National Resources behind it. Not all law enforcement are involved, want to be involved, but they know they are letting their friends commit genocide. They are letting their friends psychologically execute mentally ill, innocent, non-consenting victims. We've been programmed and conditioned to call atrocities and crimes against humanity as research and experiments and studies. When you look at it, if you look at the Tuskegee syphilis experiment, it is not a study. Letting black men die and suffer untreated syphilis for 40 years is a crime against humanity. There can be no other way to look at it. And these targeting programs are committing genocide against the nation's most vulnerable. I am going to be silenced. Oh, yeah. And I recently checked my Google activity logs, and I have uh, IP addresses, regular IP addresses, and IPv6 IP addresses spoofed to look like they are coming from Philadelphia when Who Is Lookup exposes them as being IPs from Ashburn, Virginia, logging into my Google account using GMM underscore APP applications, which is deep links to micromobility of tracking my position on my cell phone to a client receiver, uh, clearly uh, tracking me and my cell phone from IP addresses that are registered from May 2022, the time of my targeting began. Uh, it's very, very suspicious. I'm sure whatever I say or look up is never going to connect these IP addresses to the CIA. But they're coming out of Ashburn, Virginia, and there is another address that is deeper, that is the father of these IP addresses of another place in Virginia, and Google Maps in that location is a wooded lot in, I believe the town starts with an R or something, Virginia. It is very close to CIA land, Langley. And when I looked up the town name, I'll put it in the description. I put in the town name in Google, and it comes up as the, uh, you know, community built for CIA employees, like a CIA 15-minute city or whatever it is, like a CIA metropolis, like built city. It is CIA. It is directly involved. They are logging into my Google and my phone since my targeting began. And I have records and evidence of it, and all the logs of these IP addresses. I am going to be silenced soon. Uh, I am putting all my evidence up on nothingspretty.com. I am trying to, I don't care anything about NHI involvement. I do not care about Omen picking the wrong side of humanity. I do not care about NHI's control for power, that they picked the powers that be, thinking, they'd get in line with those who already have power, when those people in power are the worst of humanity. This NHI technology is from NHI themselves, and they are in line with the powers that be. And those people are bad people. And these bad people are good at keeping lies. Gangstalking is an exposure of their vast network of liars living two-faced lies to destroy regular humanity. I feel like I am the only person that on this planet who still has integrity, who has morals, who has principles, who has a heart. I've been telling the people involved in my conspiracy and my targeting to purge. The system needs a purge. To revolt right now. There needs to be a revolt right now. Law enforcement has been preparing to go to war against the public since the perfect crime of 9/11 to enact world to enact complete surveillance in a police state. My interactions with the police in person, I speak to troopers through privacy glass and an intercom. Where I am trying to report crime, I am made to feel like the criminal. They will not even see me face to face. I don't know when this happened because I don't have many interactions with police. I have no reason to. But to go to a barracks, you will meet privacy glass and resistance to seeing someone face to face. And this helps these people commit these crimes, to commit genocide, to protect and serve the NHI influence. From what I've been able to ascertain from the insane rabbit hole, I do not care about. I do not care about any of the powers in place or any influence from NHI or aliens. I do not care about any of it. But from what I've been able to ascertain is that when this influence showed up on the planet, they brought the transistor. They brought modern technology. That is the reason why the computing power doubles every year. Exponential growth that is not human. Nothing develops this fast. AI has gone from rudimentary to insanely effective in over 5 years. That innovation is not man-made. The police need to revolt from the cops. There needs to be a shift in humanity. Humanity needs to stand up or it is a goner. There needs to be a purge. Revolt right now. There should be no question. No one should be sitting on their hands for atrocities to be happening. These are acts I wouldn't let happen to the perpetrators themselves. And that is a common thing you will find from targeted individuals. You can find real victims from their claims of saying, I wouldn't let this happen to my worst enemy. This is not, I am embarrassed to be a part of a race that would do this to itself. I am disgusted and embarrassed to be a human because of the people in power. The technology I am experiencing and have been exposed to for the last 33 months wasn't meant to destroy people like this. It is a collective hive mind experience where it is supposed to bring people together. This is supposed to help humanity growth into something beautiful to the next stage. This was supposed to be a good technology. But because of the powers that be, the alignment with those in power, and those in power being being the worst of humanity, we have a situation. And we have been so programmed and conditioned to believe in these institutions, I cannot get my own father to even look at the evidence that I have of the CIA being directly on my phone, tracking me, and logging into my Google account. He cannot live in a world where people can keep secrets and that people are not inherently good. I am alone, and this is what is happening to every targeted individual. They swear their parents are directly involved. If I wasn't lucid, you wouldn't be able to convince me otherwise of my parents' direct involvement. They are complicit by nature. They thwart my actions. They do everything they can to hurt my chances of making a difference. And this is the isolation that comes from being targeted, and this is what they enjoy. This is the reason they are doing it. These perpetrators, the law enforcement apparatus of the country, do not need to manipulate their victims into thinking delusional thoughts. They do that on their own. The people they are targeting are mostly mentally ill people with delusional thoughts and explanations of what's happening to them on their own. They are manipulating these people's narrative for enjoyment. They enjoy their public suffering. Another blatant psyop and the control of the CIA narrative of their victims is T.I.'s favorite ex-CIA whistleblower, Dr. Robert Duncan, author and scientist, who writes books mixing half-truths about the targeting programs and mixes them with insane fabrications that no rational mind could ever believe to further discredit these victims. And they swear by this guy. If you look on the CIA reading room, he is all over declassified papers in the CIA reading room, Freedom of Information Act reading room. And they killed him off after like years of him being a plant and a psyop. They recently killed him off, I think in November, of reported directed energy weapons. And, you know, this accredited author and doctor, ex-CIA whistleblower, ex-CIA employee, has no obituary. They are very sloppy in their blatant control of the public narrative of their victims and the media's portrayal of them. Anything you hear about the targeted individual program or community is a CIA psyop itself. Ramona D, anybody, you know, these CIA whistleblowers from the FBI whistleblowers, anyone claiming they have knowledge of directed energy weapons, gangstalking, or targeted individual stuff is a CIA psyop. I am the only one I can find that has any direct knowledge of any of this, and they think it is funny to let me try and disseminate this knowledge. They think it is hilarious to let me do this, and that the inability of me to get any traction on it will crush me finally enough that I commit suicide. This is a wake-up call. There needs to be a purge. Humanity is going to die out with a whimper if this continues. The powers that be need to be removed. The corruption is so deep. Pennsylvania, my state that I have always been proud of, I am no longer proud to be a Pennsylvanian. It is a hotbed of corruption and, a hotbed of testing how far these people can go without repercussions The Kids for Cash scandal, where 2 judges got convicted for taking $2.8 million in kickbacks from juvenile prisons for the wrongful convictions of over 2,300 children. Wrongful convictions that led to at least 2 known suicides. And these convicted judges, the one of them was released in 2020 and then officially pardoned by Biden on his way out. This is the system, covering for the system when they have been outed for atrocities, crimes against humanity, the worst kind of crimes, the crimes against children. Children are innocent, and any crime against them is the most despicable crime I can think of. And these are the men of the system, judges. Pennsylvania should be so ashamed. Biden should be so ashamed. The system should cover for itself, should always cover itself, but the system should always be doing the right, just thing. The people in these positions, there's no one to replace them. Nobody wants their jobs. So the system should cover itself. And I think that's a good thing. I always thought cops being cowboys, if they stretch the laws or break them to arrest criminals, I am okay with that. I've always been okay with that. Criminals, would do the same. But not like this. Not covering for atrocities. Not committing genocide. Do not let your friends be a part of this. The medical health professions are directly involved with this. The claims of targeting victims are not the descriptions of mental illness. Mental illness is generalized and doesn't have situational awareness. The claims of targeted individuals are directly in line with the documented tactics of intelligence agency tactics and techniques to break people, and nothing like mental illness. And all these doctors are ignoring the fact that most of these people are well past the age of schizophrenia, and that late onset schizophrenia still has overt, subtle, or overt signs that you have something wrong with you. You show signs your whole life before you go full-blown schizophrenia. People, you're off. You're just a bit off. People can see you're a bit off, and then you get your full-blown diagnosis. You're schizophrenic. I'm not schizophrenic. I was 38 when my targeting began. And my whole life I've been a very rational, sane person. No one has ever said, oh, there's something off with this one. I am a mildly intelligent, regular person who has always kept to himself, and I do not watch the news. I do not read the paper. I do not like what I see. And I have always worn blinders because of that. Why this would ever seek me out to expose itself to me is absurd. I was doing nothing with my life. I would have always done nothing with my life. The initial investigation seen me suffer through the worst downward spiral depression of my life. I was not trying to survive. I picked picked up fentanyl as a direct attempt to not survive. I was in a dark place when my targeting began. When I quit fentanyl, 2 weeks later, that my targeting began, and I let them torture and abuse me for 2 years because I thought I deserved it. I've known for a long, long time I was put on this planet to suffer. And that's what I've been doing. But it should never be like this. I should not be suffering like this. This severe mental illness that is mimicked, that people are being paid. I did the math. Over the 33 months, there is over 80,000 paid man hours of abuse dumped into me. Over 9 years of paid man hours of people abusing me. And that is with the constant being at 3.4 people. My targeting at the absolute minimum is 2 people constant. One to keep an eye on the other. So there is no sympathy allowed. No one is slipping. No one's leaking any information. It's a well-oiled machine. And it is a constant of 2. And then day shift has a lot of external, people contributing their abuse. And then, night shift has people. I have a lot of people in and out of my head abusing me. And I have clear signs, especially now that I am getting further in my quest to fucking end genocide. I am getting a lot more signs of hierarchy and bosses in my fucking head. The constant being set at 3.4 is a low thing. And then I set their hourly rates pretty low. And it is still at $3 million for my targeting over the last 2.8 years. And I am assuming that their hourly rate is supplemented with a psychotronic torture bonus. That these people are getting bonuses. And that anybody sitting on their hands letting this happen, they are also getting bonuses. This is trillions of dollars of taxpayer money being spent on genocide. I will not stand for it. If I have to end genocide by myself, I will. They are going to silence me. I can't wait. I want to be a 6. Nothingspretty.com. I just shifted to Norway. We'll see if I get anything up by the time I'm done. My affidavit for going to court pro CIFP this week, my affidavit will be done tomorrow. And I'm trying to get a doctor to sign a paper confirming that schizophrenia is insanely rare to be late onset, and that the claims of targeting victims are more in line with intelligence agency tactics and not mental illness. And I'm looking to get a doctor to sign. I'm going to try and pay a doctor $500 or $1,000 to sign this paper. And I'm going to federal lawsuit with or without it this week. I am running out of time. I love being human. I just don't like humans.